What if I told you there's a movie about a zombie cowboy pharaoh that haunts a nursing home and sucks the souls out of old people in Texas? Let me tell you further that this zombie cowboy pharaoh is fought by an elderly Elvis Presley and his friend John Fitzgerald Kennedy. Now, imagine even further. John Fitzgerald Kennedy never died in his assassination attempt. His brain was filled with sand, and he's also an African American gentleman. Now, what if I told you even further that Elvis was played by Bruce Campbell, and that this movie is not just silly, but an introspective look at aging, Elvis, and regrets of a person's life. I was trying to come up with the third thing. Now, let me introduce you to a movie called Bubba Ho Tep.
Myself on you, baby.
As always, we should start out with a brief summary, but first, hello, welcome back to the channel. If you're new, this is Unemployed Movie Critic. If you've come back again, hi, my boyfriend and the couple friends that watch this YouTube channel. How you guys doing? Welcome back to the YouTube channel. My name is Maya, and here we talk about films. Okay. First, the movie starts out with a commercial promoting this Pharaoh exhibit. And it's kind of like an old school kind of commercial. It's just like, come see the Pharaoh exhibit, come see the, what is that called? Like sarcophagus, come see the sarcophagus in the museum. And the sarcophagus, we soon learn, has been stolen by a group of thieves that are driving a big bus. And the group of thieves that are driving this big bus, they are, I think they're in a storm. I can't confirm. I'm not going to look it up because it's not that big of a detail. But I think they're in a storm, and so they lose control of the bus, accidentally lose the sarcophagus, and it falls into the lake. It falls into a nearby lake in Texas, okay? Next, we meet Elvis, or Sebastian Haff, which is Bruce Campbell. Stick with me now. Sebastian Haff shares a room with this other older gentleman, and the old guy, it is kind of crazy because Elvis has this whole inner monologue thing. So he's doing like this inner monologue thing when all of a sudden the old guy that he shares a room with is like and he dies. He also in his inner monologue talks a lot, especially in the first half of the movie, about how his pee-pee don't work no more. He can't get it up, and he's got a big bump on his cock. He talks about that a lot. So the old guy next to him dies, and soon his daughter, the old guy's daughter, comes to pick up his belongings. And for some reason, when she's coming to pick up her father's belongings, she's wearing high-heeled sandals, a tiny little mini skirt, and a little spaghetti strap tank top with her boobs hanging out and a full face of makeup. Which is strange because I don't know why you would wear that to pick up your dead father's items from a nursing home when you're in your period of mourning. I don't know why you would do that, but that's what she wears. Sebastian gets to talking to her, and he's like, hey, I've never really seen you come by the nursing home before to like hang out with your dad. She was like, yeah, it's because I don't care about him and he's old and I don't like coming here. And Sebastian's like, that's not really cool. And she's kind of just like a classically shallow, beautiful woman, and she is going to throw away all of his stuff. So she's cleaning out his drawers. He has a Purple Heart medal and some pictures, and she's going to throw it all away, which is crazy. And it's kind of implied that she doesn't know what a Purple Heart medal is, which everybody does, unless you're from outside of the United States. Everybody knows what that is. But she throws it all away. And Sebastian Haff is like, whoa, mama, don't throw that away. This is important. It has sentimental value. Reach into the trash can and get it. I'll keep it. I want someone to remember it. And as she reaches down, her little butt shows. And Sebastian says, oh my God, I like that. And he gets hard for the first time. This is not really that important of a detail to the movie, but it did happen within like the first 15 minutes. So I feel like you deserve to know as part of my summary. Now you may be confused because I'm referring to Bruce Campbell's Elvis as Elvis and Sebastian Haff. Let me explain. Bruce Campbell is Elvis. Okay. He's in the nursing home. He tells the girl that he's talking to, he's like, I'm Elvis, mama. And she laughs, and the little nurse on staff laughs. And the nurse is like, no, you're Sebastian, remember? And so the story is Elvis, the real life Elvis, traded places with an Elvis impersonator named Sebastian Haff from Texas. He was getting sick of fame. He wanted to change up, and so he switched places with this guy. Nobody ever noticed, but he did sign a contract, and the contract said that basically if Elvis ever gets tired of pretending to be Sebastian Haff, the Elvis impersonator, he could go back to his normal life. And Elvis was having a great time in Texas being an impersonator. The ladies loved him. The fans adored him. He had a good time. He had all the fun of performing, but none of the pressures of being famous. So he just abandoned his family, by the way. And he loses the contract at a BBQ. He's using a propane gas tank, and it blows up and it explodes. And he loses his house, which is like a mobile home, and he loses the contract as well. And so that's how he got sucked into this nursing home. They think he's crazy. They think he is just losing it, and he's really Sebastian Haff, and he says, no, I'm Elvis, baby. But nobody believes him anymore because he's old. And in this inner monologue, he kind of talks a lot about how being old means you're never taken seriously anymore. So not only do people think he's crazy because he's an older guy, and so they're like, no, you're Sebastian Haff, you're delusional, you forget, remember, it's just because you like to be Elvis, you like to be an Elvis impersonator. But he also says like he can't even like insult people anymore. So when the nurse is giving him a hard time, he's like, he tries to say something insulting, he tries to cuss at her, and they just kind of laugh, and he's just like, being old is just, they just think I'm a funny old fart bag and nobody takes me seriously anymore. So that's kind of a big part of his inner monologue. But also throughout the film, in this inner monologue, it's kind of important to note, he talks a lot about his regrets. He realizes that he has been a poor husband and poor father to Lisa Marie and Priscilla. And even though he kind of complains about Priscilla, like early in the movie, he says something about like, my stupid bitch ex-wife, Priscilla. And then later on, he's like, I miss you, Scylla, which seems like something the real Elvis would say if he was alive. And in the end, I guess, of his life, his scheming is what got him in this nursing home where nobody takes him seriously. Him abandoning his family and living this party boy lifestyle and living for the women and living for the fame ultimately is his demise. Kind of like a classic story, but that's kind of something to keep in mind throughout the film. He also has a bump on his winky, and he's impotent, which is something that he talks about a lot. It kind of reminds me of in The Green Mile. If you've ever read The Green Mile, the main character is just like, yeah, also got a bad UTI. My piss hurts real bad, and my balls are rattling around like a pair of maracas. It's crazy. Like every couple paragraphs, he has to mention something about his balls, and that's kind of exactly what's happening here with Elvis. So he feels like he has lost his vitality. He's being treated like a baby. And I think him mentioning so much about his dick has something to do with like he feels like less of a man. He feels like he left his vitality and his manlyhood and his God-given right as a man to be able to jack off is kind of like what he's talking about, because now he's old and just everything sucks now. And fast forward a little bit, it's nighttime in the nursing home. We see this crazy old lady. And first, this old lady is walking through this decrepit hallway of the nursing home, and she sees a woman in an iron lung in the hallway, which is insane. And she steals chocolate from this woman. Crazy. And then she goes back into her room, and she sees a giant scarab, which, if you don't know, is like a big beetle. Now, this series of events already sounds insane, like an acid trip, or it honestly kind of feels like you are on a substance watching some parts of this movie, because like not even the plot, but just like the way it's shot is also very confusing to you. But anyways, she sees the big scarab. Okay, she's trying to like fight off the scarab, and that's when we see the zombie cowboy Pharaoh enter the picture. Yes, right. So he's wearing a pimp hat for some reason, and he's also wearing cowboy boots, we later see. And so I think what happened is that he is supposed to be a cowboy, but I honestly think what happened is the costume department for this film went to Spirit Halloween. I literally think this is what happened. They went to Spirit Halloween. They were like, we need to get cowboy boots and a cowboy hat to make our zombie cowboy Pharaoh because he's in Texas and everything's bigger in Texas and he's like a cowboy. But I think Spirit Halloween was probably out of cowboy hats, so they got a pimp hat, and they thought nobody will notice because it's going to be with the boots and they're going to think it's a cowboy hat, but it's very obviously a pimp hat. So it makes the character even more ridiculous and confusing. So imagine zombie Pharaoh, scary undead Pharaoh, pimp hat, cowboy boots. Imagine that. He comes into the room. He is victimizing this old woman. He gets her on the ground. He's killing her, sucks out her soul. She's dead. Okay. And so the next morning, these funeral home people come by, and we get these like little vignettes of these funeral home people whenever an older person in the nursing home dies. We get them. They come the next day. The person's covered up with a big white cloth, and then they just kind of say something silly to each other. Like in one scene, he trips over a bush. In another one, they're just like talking about, I don't know, old people being funny or whatever. So we get these little vignettes of them. So that's what happens the next day. Elvis, I guess at this point, kind of explains his life at the nursing home. He explains the people that he knows and hangs out with, how he gets here, and it's pretty bleak. The nursing home is a pretty unhappy looking place. It's very old and dirty and decrepit, and doesn't really look like a nursing home if you've ever been into one. There sometimes seems to be 0 nurses on staff except for 1 nurse, which is crazy. And the older residents just wander around the hallways at night and nobody comes to check on them. There seem to be 0 nurses at night, which is the most dangerous part for older people. If you know, my grandpa has dementia, and we go to his nursing home, and that place is there's security, there's nurses, and there's just other little people walking around. There's constant people there, so that seems crazy. And there's this one main nurse, and she's kind of not very nice to the older people, because she's the one who is talking to Elvis in the beginning, and she's like, no, stupid, you're Sebastian Haff, you're not Elvis, dummy, which I feel like is not something you do to somebody who's delusional. It just seems like a very eerie, uncomfortable, Ghost Adventures-esque environment. Now Elvis is going to introduce us to his good friend JFK, John Fitzgerald Kennedy, the former president of the United States. But wait, JFK's black. How is this possible? So JFK explains that after he was shot in Texas, he was like, the CIA was covering it up. They filled up his brain with sand and they put him into a nursing home, and then they dyed his skin black for some reason. They did this in an effort to hide him so that Lyndon B. Johnson could become the president. And so they put him in a nursing home. They changed the color of his skin so nobody could ever find him. They gave him like a fake family, it's also implied, and nobody ever came to check up on him. His children never came to check up on him. They filled his brain with sand, much like his real life nephew RFK Jr. His brain was also filled with sand, as we have come to know. Elvis and JFK are barely Elvis and JFK, not just the fact that JFK is played by a black man. He looks nothing like JFK. He doesn't say anything like you would expect JFK to say, and he doesn't even have the JFK mid-Atlantic accent. He's just literally a random guy that they pulled off the street. Bruce Campbell kind of does an Elvis impression, and sometimes he says some kind of like little Elvis-isms, but he's not a very good Elvis. He does say something about a peanut butter banana sandwich, mama, whoa mama, but he doesn't say very many Elvis-isms, and I kind of wish there was some more of that. JFK doesn't even say, calm down, Dick, it's just a storm. So that's a little bit disappointing. He's talking to his friend JFK, introducing JFK. He's like, yeah, this place, you and me are the only people that get it. We're sharp up here. Anyway, next day, Elvis wakes up in the middle of the night to a big giant scarab. He has this big epic battle with the scarab where he like is punching up against the wall, and he says some kind of Elvis, and he's like, now you're about to feel the wrath of the king, baby. And then he like has a bedpan, and he gets the scarab up against the bedpan, and there's a scene where it's like oh, I got it. And he turns it around. It jumps in his face. And it's like kind of good. You know, it's like kind of creepy. And the scarab is just like a little thing on a string. It's like a puppet, but it is kind of creepy. So that's fun to note, I guess. So he has this big thing. He lights the scarab on fire with his heater. And then the Pharaoh comes out again. Okay. And then the Pharaoh just kind of walks away, and I think he just like walks through a wall or walks through a door outside, and Elvis is just watching him like, whoa, I can't believe what just happened to me, baby. The next night, I believe one of his friends is also attacked by the Pharaoh because he dies. We see the funeral director people coming to take him away. And JFK and Elvis at this point both see the Pharaoh walking away. And so they're like, we're the only people that know about this. And they went because they heard commotion. So they went out to go see what was going on. They saw the Pharaoh attacking the friend. He died and then he walked away. And so they're being interviewed the next morning by like the nursing home staff, like a doctor and some nurses. And they're like, well, what can we say? We can't say that we just saw a Pharaoh walk away, because they're like, yeah, you're just crazy. Old people are going to up our meds and they're going to think we're insane. So we had to come up with this story, but now we are the only people that know, and we feel responsible, and we have to take care of this nursing home. Okay. And I think at this point, this is where Elvis is talking about the scarab, and he says something to the doctor about like, yeah, you guys need to get like an exterminator in here. And they're like, well, how big was it? And he says, about as big as a peanut butter banana sandwich. Funny. The next night, JFK is attacked by the Pharaoh. Okay. So he falls to the ground in his room. Elvis, I think maybe he sees the scarab like walking through the hallway. I think that's how he knows that JFK is going to be under attack next. I don't quite remember how he knows JFK, but he goes there, he rushes there. Well, JFK is fallen to the ground, and he's trying to help him, you know, survive and whatnot. And JFK's room looks like the Oval Office, by the way, which seems like it wouldn't be possible in a nursing home because everybody else's room is decrepit and poop brown and dirty, but JFK's room is clean and is a replica of the Oval Office for some reason. I think it's at this point that Elvis and JFK decide to nickname him Bubba Ho Tep, the name of the film. So without spoiling more of the movie for you, JFK and Elvis, they team up. They decide they have to fight it. JFK goes to the library. He gets a book about, I think he gets a book about pharaohs and like ghost hunting and stuff like that. And he's like, I'm going to come up with a plan on how to take down Bubba Ho Tep. And this is a little bit of a dumb detail, but JFK brings Elvis into the bathroom. Is like, I have to show you something. And on the bathroom stall is like hieroglyphics, okay? And JFK is like, I can translate it. And he pulls out his little book about ancient Egypt and translates the hieroglyphics. And it says something stupid like Cleopatra has big tits, or like something really dumb and like juvenile like that. And Elvis is like, wow, this is getting serious. And it's also at this point that JFK explains that Pharaoh has been stealing souls, not just in any manner, but by sucking the soul out of the old people's asshole. And it's explained that he just like needs an orifice to suck out the soul. And for some reason he's chosen the butt, which is just like dumb teenage humor, stupid, but kind of funny when you think about the rest of the details of the movie. So that was mentioned in the movie, so I'm mentioning it to you now. And the Pharaoh is upset because he can't rest because his grave was unmarked. Like he didn't have like a proper tomb, I guess. So he has like an unmarked grave. He's, you know, going to be like lost and forgotten to time. Then his body was taken from Egypt. Then it was stolen yet again and dropped in the middle of the ocean. So he's upset because he can't rest, and he keeps taking these souls because the old people are an easy target. Fresh souls all the time, right? Old people are constantly moving in, and if they die, it's not suspicious because old people die all the time. And so Elvis and JFK realize this is going to go on forever unless we do something about it. Okay? So they decide to kill the Pharaoh one night on this big elaborate plan. I'll skip all the details. Watch the movie yourself. It's free on like Tubi or Roku TV or something like that. I think it's on Tubi. And so they basically like, they find this like rite that they're supposed to recite to banish him, and they also get a big propane tank. Elvis steals a big propane tank from the shed. Again, there's like nobody around at night watching these old people so they can do whatever they want, which actually, guys, side story, actually kind of reminds me of my grandpa, because my grandpa's in a nursing home and he has dementia. And a lot when he first got to the nursing home, he would just like try to escape, and he would like steal things like butter knives and forks and spoons to like try to escape and like open up the window, and he'd still like glue and dump stuff that he thought were like weapons or tools, and he like thought he could build something, and he'd be like, I'm gonna get out of here, you guys can't keep me here, I'm leaving. But so this is accurate to how old people are. Apparently they can just go around stealing things and nobody will know, as confirmed by my real life experience. And so in the end, they lure out Bubba Ho Tep, they set him on fire, they kick his ass, he goes back into the ground, and by killing him and setting his soul free, they too become freed. Okay.
Yeah, hello. Mr. Kennedy, ask not what your rest home can do for you. Ask what you can do for your rest home. Hey.
So, what did I think of this film? This film is very much a product of the early 2000s. It has that raunchy kind of teenage dumb humor about like butts and boobs and poop and stuff. And it has Bruce Campbell of the Evil Dead fame. The side characters are all kind of shallow. So for example, like the girl that came to pick up her dad's belongings, who is just like sexy for no reason other than to make a joke about Elvis getting his winky hard, which is just also just kind of dumb humor. It just seems like a very 2000s choice of like, whoa, we got a woman in a tiny little skirt going on, and she's just like callous and has absolutely no, that she's like mean and hates her dad for no reason, and there is no thought given to like why she hates her dad. So just kind of just like one-dimensional. They also kind of have this classic kind of one-dimensional sassy black nurse, and that's her whole character. Her whole character is just like, yeah, I'm kind of sassy, and you know, that's her thing. And the nursing home staff is just very thoughtless and careless and doesn't care about the old people, because the point of the message of the movie, above all everything else, is nobody cares about old people. End of discussion. There is no depth to it. That's, people just don't care about old people. And it also feels very early 2000s because it has like this crazy Ghost Adventures-esque editing, where if you've ever seen Ghost Adventures with Zach Bagans, it has like all these really fast like cuts, and these like, they do these like things where they like rewind and fast forward these clips of like people dressed as like ghosts doing like creepy things, walking around these decrepit hallways. And they did that exactly in this movie. I've never seen a movie that looked more like Ghost Adventures or like a Disturbed music video in my whole life. So that kind of lends to that same feeling. And I think just the logic, I guess, maybe in the film, or like the way that they didn't really string the pieces together. It's just kind of glued together lightly with stupid jokes and shallow idea of a plot. Feels very early 2000s, and that's not really a criticism because it's an enjoyable movie to watch and it's fun. But I think when you watch it, you will kind of understand exactly what I'm talking about, how it feels like something that you would watch when you are in middle school in 2009. So it feels like a college student project where they just like they had like an idea of a script, and then they just kind of strung it together, and they're like, dude, what if we had him read hieroglyphics and it said poop? Like, that's kind of what it feels like to me. Except it's not, because it's actually based on a book. Like, it's based on short stories about the adventures of Elvis. And the screenwriting is actually like kind of interesting, except I feel like they did some ad libs, which made it a little bit more stupid, but who cares? It's still pretty funny. And I think it really just like, above all, defies logic. So the nursing home, and it's like almost a liminal space. It's like very eerie and unsettling, the amount of people that are not around. It just wouldn't make sense. A nursing home has so many people, so many residents, and so many just other people that it feels unreal and it feels creepy. It feels more like an abandoned building than an actual place where medicine happens, I guess. Also important to mention, besides JFK's room looking like the Oval Office, it kind of defies logic in that he has like this JFK memorabilia. Like he has a framed picture of Lee Harvey Oswald and Lee Harvey Oswald's mugshot. He has pictures of Jackie, which if he has pictures of Jackie and he loves Jackie, why wouldn't Jackie come to see him? That doesn't make any sense either. And he also has a diorama of like the grassy knoll. Like he has this whole setup of like the bookstore building and then the grassy knoll and like all the people set up around it, which is like insane that he has that. It's so, that is a strange detail as well. And like I said, like in an early scene, there's just a woman in an iron lung, and then nobody ever talks about her ever again, and she's never seen ever again. So it feels unreal. But I will say, I think the acting in this film is actually pretty good, which I think is rare for kind of these cult classic pulpy kind of movies. The acting is actually pretty good. JFK does not act like JFK, but that's not really his fault. That's kind of more of a direction fault. And I would have loved to see a little bit more classic JFK / Elvis lines. Like, I can't really describe it, but they just kind of make JFK like a fancy guy. They just have him like have fancy like china, and like he drinks tea, and he's just kind of like a sophisticated dude. But it would have been funnier if he like had jokes about like Marilyn Monroe or like the Bay of Pigs or Cuba or something. Like Elvis had that a little bit, and I guess the movie is about him more than it is JFK, but I just thought it was like kind of weird, and it would have sold it to me a little bit more. I think it would have been interesting too if JFK was actually like black in real life in this storyline, and that the CIA killed him for like racist reasons, and then they covered it up and they just hired some guy to take a bunch of pictures of him, and then they tried to convince us that that was the real JFK all along and that was the big cover up. That would have been funnier, but instead they just like did like a weird thing where they were like, actually he's like wearing permanent blackface, which is like stupid. I must note that in the middle of this film, which I watched on Tubi, which has ads, there was an ad for local lawyer Top Dog Law, which I must talk to you about right now. And Top Dog Law is a local Metro Detroit area staple. So if you listen to the radio, which I do because my aux cord doesn't work in my car, if you listen to the radio, you hear commercials for Top Dog Law all the time, which are crazy.
This karma, honestly, I don't know what this is. I went to the store today and got into an accident. Doctors telling me I may not ever be able to work again in my life. My mom is telling me everything gonna be alright. She called Top Dog. Wife telling me we about to be rich. Brother telling me you about to be a millionaire. Like I give a about some money right now. You know I'm paralyzed. You know I'm paralyzed from the neck down from this accident. All I did was try to go to the store. And y'all talking to me about some money. I don't give a about no money, man. Talking about $1 mil, $2 mil.
But on Tubi, it's important for me to mention that he now has a commercial advertisement. And so I guess I don't know where I'm going with this, but I'm just so used to hearing his commercials. The visual commercial was crazy. Top Dog was walking around with like a lion on the streets of Detroit fighting for people's rights after an auto accident. And I feel like he feels like a real life Better Call Saul. Like the absurdity of his character and the over the topness of his advertisements feels like he is not a real person, and yet he is, and he's a respected Metro Detroit area lawyer in Michigan. So I feel like you need to watch, like you need to hear what I'm talking about. And so I encourage you to go to Kev on Stage's YouTube channel, because he records the commercials as they happen on the radio. And I just feel like this is the perfect opportunity, and I will never have another chance to talk about this ever again. In conclusion, I feel like Bubba Ho Tep should be considered a companion piece to the Priscilla and Elvis movies. It really strangely is an examination of Elvis's life and his regrets, and it's pondering what would happen if Elvis had lived to older age, which he was sadly robbed of. So it's an examination of aging. What does it mean to age? What does it mean to have regrets and to try to make right by the wrongs that you've done in your life? So Elvis is kind of like a famous party boy. I wouldn't say he's like the person that you think of when you think of party boys, people who went too crazy with their fame and then kind of lost it all. I think some famous examples that seem more immediate to me, like Elton John. Like Elton John kind of famously was going all out there, went a little bit too far, reeled it back. Like Freddie Mercury, classic example, went too hard, partied too hard, trusted the wrong people, regretted it later in life. And it's kind of that famous kind of party boy breaking all the rules example, but through the eyes of Elvis, which is interesting because Elvis never had a chance to tell his story because he passed away. It's Elvis if he was matured and humbled, and he knows that he's done wrong by his family. He knows that his family isn't ever going to come see him, and that's his own fault because he tried to like play fate. He's like trying to right his wrongs, right? So he cares about his friends in the nursing home. He cares about the other residents there. He knows that he's the only person that can really do anything about it. He feels, I guess, humiliated and hurt by the fact that now that he's old, he will never be the same person that he was. He can never relive those experiences because he has just like these physical limitations and just the perception of old people to those around him. He realizes he'll never be taken seriously again. He'll never be what he once was. And so he has to kind of reclaim this power because he is so powerless by saving the nursing home, which he kind of considers his home and his family. He wants to redeem his party boy past, and he does. And so in the end, we learn the reason the Pharaoh haunts is because he never was able to rest. He never really had the proper recognition that he needed to be able to pass on. And just like our protagonists, they never got the endings that they were supposed to get, right? So the real JFK and the real Elvis are here in this nursing home, and nobody else knows about that. So they never got the recognition and the rest and the, I guess, the benefits of growing old that you would get by being famous. They never got that, and so they have to live a normal, everyday old person, I guess, life. Similar to the Pharaoh. They were robbed of their name, they were robbed of their fame, and they were robbed of their family, and that's it. And then they're going to be forgotten to time like the Pharaoh. But by them setting him free and fighting him, and in the end conquering him, they conquer the fear of aging and of growing old and dying alone, and they accept the fate that they have been given, that they have perhaps even put upon themselves, and they are able to rest, much like the Pharaoh is able to rest as well. Thank you. Yeah, it's actually just kind of funny that it kind of has this interesting take on aging and a life full of regrets and what it means to reclaim your life in old age. And it was funny, it was strange, it was interesting. All in all, I loved it. I think you should watch it. You should take a couple drinks back and watch it with some friends. I gave it maybe a 3 out of 5 stars on Letterboxd. Not much for me else to say except for thank you for watching this video. Please continue to watch videos in the future. Watch Bubba Ho Tep for free on Tubi. I wish this was a Tubi ad. I wish this was sponsored, but of course I'm not. And thank you very much for joining me. I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you've seen Bubba Ho Tep, sound off. Let me know. Please talk about it with me. But thank you. Have a nice day and goodbye.